the cover of one copy, which he was to dispatch to his grumpy benefactor, J. Borden Benson, he wrote, " Charmed to be caned. Call any time. C. Cohens. Oliver Armiston." On another he wrote, " Dear Mrs. Wentworth, see how simple it is to pierce your fancied security." He dispatched these two magazines with a feeling of glee. No sooner had he done so, however, than he learned that the Wentworths had not yet returned from Newport. The magazine would be forwarded to them, no doubt. The Wentworths' absence made the tale all the better. In fact, for his story Armiston had insisted on Godahl's breaking into the castle and solving the mystery of the keyless door during the season when the chateau was closed and strung with a perfect network of burglar alarms connecting with the gendarmerie in the nearby village. That was the 25th of September. The magazine was put on sale that morning. On the 26th day of September, Armiston bought a late edition of an afternoon paper from a leather-lunged boy who was hawking " Extra " in the street. Across the first page the headlines met his eye: "Robbery and Murder in the Wentworth Mansion. Private watchman summoned by burglar alarm at 10 o'clock this morning finds servant with skull crushed on floor of mysterious steel doored room. Murdered man's pockets filled with rare jewels. Police believe he was murdered by confederate who escaped." The Wentworth butler, stone deaf, had just returned from Newport to open house at time of murder. It was 10 o'clock that night when an automobile drew up at Armiston's door, and a tall man with a square jaw, square shoes, and a square mustache alighted. This was Deputy Police Commissioner Burns, a professional detective whom the new administration had drafted into the city's service from the government secret service. Burns was admitted, and as he advanced to the middle of the drawing room, without so much as a nod to the ghost-like Armiston who stood shivering before him, he drew a package of papers from his pocket. " I presume you have seen all the evening papers," he said, spitting his words through his half-closed teeth, with so much show of personal malice that Armiston, never a brave man in spite of his Godahl, cowered before him. Armiston shook his head dumbly at first, but at length he managed to say, " Not all, no." The deputy commissioner with much deliberation drew out the latest extra and handed it to Armiston without a word. It was the Evening News. The first page was divided down its entire length by a black line. On one side, and occupying 4 columns, was a word-for-word reprint of Armiston's story, The White Ruby. On the other, the facts, in deadly parallel, was a graphic account of the robbery and murder at the home of Billy Wentworth. The parallel was glaring in the intensity of its dumb accusation. On the one side was the theoretical Godahl, working his masterly way of crime step by step, and on the other was the plagiarism of Armiston's story, following the intricacies of the master mind with copybook accuracy. The editor, who must have been a genius in his way, did not accuse. He simply placed the fiction and the facts side by side, and let the reader judge for himself. It was masterly. If, as the law says, the mind that conceives, the intelligence that directs, a crime is more guilty than the very hand that acts, then Armiston here was both thief and murderer. Thief, because the white ruby had actually been stolen. Mrs. Billy Wentworth rushed to the city by special train, attended by doctors and nurses, now confirmed the story of the theft of the ruby. Murderer, because in the story Godahl had for once in his career stooped to murder as the means, and had triumphed over the dead body of his confederate, scorning, in his joy at possessing the white ruby, the paltry diamonds, pearls, and red rubies with which his confederate had crammed his pockets. Armiston seized the police officials by his lapels. " The butler !" he screamed. " The butler ! Yes, the butler ! Quick, or he will have flown !" Burns gently disengaged the hands that had grasped him. " Too late," he said. " He has already flown. Sit down and quiet your nerves. We need your help. You are the only man in the world who can help us now." When Ormiston was himself again, he told the whole tale, beginning with his strange meeting with J. Borden Benson on the train, and ending with his accepting Mrs. Wentworth's challenge to have Godahl break into the room and steal the white ruby. Burns nodded over the last part. He had already heard that from Mrs. Wentworth, and there was the autographed copy of the magazine to show for it. " You say that J. Borden Benson told you of this white ruby in the first place?" Ormiston again told, in great detail, the circumstances, all the humor now turned into grim tragedy. " That is strange," said the ex Secret Service chief. " Did you leave your purse at home, or was your pocket picked?" " I thought at first that I had absent mindedly left it at home. Then I remembered having paid the chauffeur out of the roll of bills, so my pocket must have been picked." " What kind of a looking man was this Benson?" "You must know him," said Ormiston. "Yes, I know him, but I want to know what he looked like to you. I want to find out how he happened to be so handy when you were in need of money." Ormiston described the man minutely. The deputy sprang to his feet. " Come with me," he said, and they hurried into the automobile, and soon drew up in front of the Towers. 5 minutes later they were ushered into the magnificent apartment of J. Borden Benson. That worthy was in his bath, preparing to retire for the night. " I don't catch the name," Ormiston and the deputy heard him cry through the bathroom door to his valet. " Mr. Oliver Ormiston, sir." " Ah, he has come for his caning, I expect. I'll be there directly." He did not wait to complete his toilet, so eager was he to see the author. He strode out in a brilliant bath robe, and in one hand he carried an alpenstock. His eyes glowed in anger. But the sight of Burns surprised as well as halted him. " Do you mean to say this is J. Borden Benson?" cried Ormiston to Burns, rising to his feet and pointing at the man. " The same," said the deputy. " I swear to it. I know him well. I take it he is not the gentleman who played your car fare to New Haven." " Not by 100 pounds !" exclaimed Ormiston as he surveyed the huge bulk of the elephantine clubman. The forced realization that the stranger he had hitherto regarded as a benefactor was not J. Borden Benson at all, but some one who had merely assumed that worthy's name while he was playing the conceited author as an easy dupe, did more to quiet Ormiston's nerves than all the sedatives his doctors had given him. It was a badly dashed, popular author who sat down with the deputy commissioner in his library an hour later. He would gladly have consigned Godahl to the bottom of the sea, but it was too late. Godahl had taken the trick. " How do you figure it? " Ormiston asked, turning to the deputy. " The beginning is simple enough. It is the end that bothers me," said the official. " Your bogus J. Borden Benson is, of course, the brains of the whole combination. Your infernal Godahl has told us just exactly how this crime was committed. Now your infernal Godahl must bring the guilty parties to justice." It was plain to be seen that the police official hated Godahl worse than poison, and feared him too. " Why not look in the Rose Gallery for this man who befriended me on the train?" The chief laughed. " For the love of Heaven, Ormiston, do you, who pretend to know all about scientific theory, think for a moment that the man who took your measure so easily is of the class of crooks who get their pictures in the Rose Gallery? Talk sense." " I can't believe you when you say he picked my pocket." " I don't care whether you believe me or not. He did, or one of his pals did. It all amounts to the same thing, don't you see? First, he wanted to get acquainted with you. Now the best way to get into your good graces was to put you unsuspectingly under obligation to him. So he robs you of your money. From what I have seen of you in the last few hours, it must have been like taking candy from a child. Then he gets next to you in line. He pretends that you are merely some troublesome toad in the path. He gives you money for your ticket, to get you out of his way, so he won't miss his train. His train! Of course his train is your train. He puts you in a position where you have to make advances to him. And then, grinning to himself all the time at your conceit and gullibility, he plays you through your pride, your Godahl. Think of the creator of the great Godahl